there guys, so welcome to my channel if you're new. For those that are already subscribed, welcome back. Thought I'd do a quick video about what exactly is RC rock crawling. There's probably been a lot of you, if you don't know about it, have seen guys with their toy cars, we don't call it toys, up in the hills and the mountains, riding over rocks or up in the forests. There's a lot of different type of RC cars out there. Rock crawling is 1 to 10 most of the time. There's a large community. They have various competitions and events, and they tend to stick to the 1 to 10 scale. So it's just a 10th scale of an actual vehicle. So let's talk about axles. These vehicles have different types of axles. You have a straight axle. Axle is basically the part that connects your two tires on the vehicle. And in the middle you have this little round pumpkin, as they call it, which is your differential. So you have a straight axle, which tend to be really strong. You have a portal axle, which is similar to the straight axle, but then it has geared down systems on the side, which basically give you a higher ground clearance on your vehicle. Now this vehicle here, this is a portal axle. So I'll try and see if you can see it on the camera. Over here, you have your pumpkin in the middle, your normal axle going across, and then you have a geared system here, which basically brings the whole wheel further down, which gives you a high ground clearance. So that's portal axles. Straight axle will be pretty much on this one. See if you can see that. It just goes straight across and to your tires. There's no gearing here. So that's a straight axle. Your ground clearance between your tires and the pumpkin are not as high most of the time. So portal axles tend to be for high ground clearance, but not found on many full-size vehicles. You got your G-Wagon, your Unimogs, things like that. Then the third type you have is independent suspension. So it's basically got a differential in the middle, but each wheel can move independently of the other, as opposed to a straight axle where you move this and it affects the whole axle. Most of your bashers tend to have this kind of system because you have a lot of travel for cars that do a lot of jumping. But these you can also change into rock crawlers. So another thing is, with your rock crawlers, your differential, as they call it, can be either open, like a normal car would be. If you turn one wheel, the other wheel would tend to turn the opposite direction. So you can basically hold one wheel and still turn the other. On a rock crawler, for the most part, they are a locked differential, which means if you turn one side, the other side turns with it. So it's direct and it's locked. This is a very important thing for rock crawling for the most part. You tend to get a lot more grip and you can overcome a lot more obstacles with a straight locked axle, or even a high ground clearance portal axle that is locked. So a lot of the models come standard with a locked differential. There are a few of them that work through electronic servos where you can open and close these differentials for various reasons and different obstacles. With an open differential you get a lot tighter turning radius when your car turns. With these locked ones, they tend to turn a little bit wider just because everything's working sort of against each other when it's turning. So you basically get a chassis and then you choose what kind of body you want to put on it. You get two types of bodies. This is hard plastic, and then you also get a Lexan body, which tends to be much lighter. So when you put that onto your chassis and build it on, you don't tend to tip. Your center of gravity is a lot lower. So these are quite popular amongst especially the competition crawlers. This is a G-Wagon from Mercedes. So you've got to paint it yourself, and they normally come with different types of instructions, decals, lights, the badges. So just as a disclaimer, I'm not promoting any of these products because I'm supported by any of the companies. This is just for information purpose only. What else we got here? A couple of screws. There's lots of screws, and yeah, tire carrier for the back. So anyway, with the Lexan body, you basically have to paint it from the inside out. So the good thing is, with these things, when they roll over and get scratches and stuff, the paint stays pretty much on the inside, so you never really damage the paint. They do get scuffed up and stuff on the outside, which is normal, but as opposed to a hard body, when you go over the rocks and you roll this thing, you get the normal scratches as you would in a real vehicle, and eventually you have to wind up painting them again, which I've done to the Jeep a few times. So this is a whole different video of how to paint these things from the inside. It's a bit more technical, but they also look really good once finished. There's some amazing examples out on the internet about these. So that's a Lexan body. So there's two types of bodies you can choose to put onto your chassis. Let's talk about electronics. This is just a very basic, brief overview. I mean, there's so much information, so many varieties out there that I would never be able to cover them all. So starting off, you need a radio control transmitter and the receiver that goes with them. They normally come as a pair, you know. So some of these receivers you can bind with certain radios, but generally, for the most part, especially on the lower end price range, they will come as a kit together. So the receiver, then you have what they call your electronic speed controller, which is basically the brains behind everything. This joins up, if I can get it, to your motor, which then goes inside into the gearbox and pretty much runs the truck. This side is for your battery, ESC, and different motor. So your electronic speed controller is also joined to your receiver, obviously, so you can control it. Alright, so from ESC, it goes to the motor. You get so many different types of motors and sizes. These are both brushed motors. You also get a brushless motor, which is more for your races, bashes and stuff. But new technologies are now introducing brushless motors, well, for a while now, into crawlers. Because basically with rock crawling, you need something that has a lot of torque, low end power, and it must be very controlled. If you're on the edge of a rock and your motor jumps and stuff, you can wind up rolling down. So you want a very controlled situation. That's why in the beginning, a lot of people go with brush for the most part. There are new systems, or I have one basically in this truck, which is a brushless motor, but it acts as a brush motor. It's very controlled and very fine-tuned, and it's actually really great, and it has a constant sort of torque ratio. It's the Hobbywing Fusion FOC, which is basically a motor and ESC in one. You know, it's slightly longer, but it's all together, one package, and brushless. And it's actually really brilliant. So with brush motors, you also get 21 turn or 21T and 17T. Now the lower the T, that's turns in the motor, the faster they tend to be and less low down torque. 21 turn is going to have more torque. So to run the whole system, you need batteries. You have various types of batteries. These two is a nickel metal hydride, which comes with most of the basic kits. It's powerful enough, it lasts longer, or lasts long enough, and it's actually not a bad battery at all, especially for people starting out. You also get variety of milliamps. I don't know if you'll be able to see there, but there's 2000, which is, once you know what it is, it'll tell you more or less how long you can run your truck, depending on what you're doing. This is a 2200 milliamp battery, but this is a LiPo battery. So these have different cells, and this is more of a chemical lithium polymer. And these are slightly more dangerous because of the chemical reactions that go in here. They produce a lot of power, and they last pretty long. So a person's got to know a few basics about these and taking care of them. For these LiPo batteries, you basically get a LiPo bag, which you can put it in and close up properly. So it's kind of fireproof, because there are rare cases where these things, they tend to puff up and then there's something faulty with it, and it can start just burning on its own. So that's something to be aware of, but a brilliant battery when you know what you're doing with them. Okay, so that's, I think, covers the basics for electronics. There's a lot more to it. This is just a very basic introduction. Okay, accessories. What do we have here? So with these kits, you get a very basic kit depending on what you're buying, but the entry levels come with shocks and everything like that, but they tend to be plastic shocks in some instances. You can upgrade these and buy different things on Amazon. For example, what is this? Mountain, I don't know, it's no well-named or well-branded name, but they're pretty good. I've used them and used a couple of different versions. There's a lot that you can get. They also come in different lengths. You get 90, you get 100 mil, you get 110 mil, depending on your rig. So these you can open at the top, fill them with oil as well. There's different thicknesses of oil, and this all affects the performance of your vehicle. So pretty good shock. So that's something that's upgradable. Another important thing, besides motors, shocks, massive thing, is tires. Now, I'll take him over there for a second. Hang out, no, hang out, hang out. So, you get a variety of tires, and I'll try and get this closer to the camera. You get a variety of tire sizes, you know? So, you get 120 mil tires going down to 110 and smaller. So basically they scale, you have 2.2 inch to 1.9, 1.5, 1.75 in between. But basically there is an endless amount of tires to be bought and tested if you're interested in it on the web. There are clone tires, like this is a clone of a well-known brand from Proline, Hyrax. This is a clone tire of theirs, Chinese made, and it actually performs really well. So there's a variety of tires. You get mud terrain, you get all terrain, like the real vehicles you would get. This, for example, is a Milestyle Patagonia, a very popular tire which you see a lot in the guys in the US, in Moab. They ride these full-size rigs on the sandstone and stuff. A lot of them have been riding the Milestyle Patagonias. It's a registered tire. It's an exact copy of the original size. Also costs a bit more. It's extremely soft and has a lot of grip. So with tires comes tires inserts. It's like little foam. It's really different grades of foam. Some are harder, some are softer. And the same thing, different sizes. So this, let me show you here, basically goes inside the tire. Give me a second. Needs a bit of a TLC. Okay. So once it's in, your tire looks a lot fuller, and when you're riding, you'll have a certain amount of give. It'll be the same as taking the tire pressures of a car down, basically. So you play with foams to get different tire pressures, as you would think. So that's an important factor. A hard tire doesn't tend to grip as well. I mean, it's like riding on the highway with a full-size tire. If you want to go off-road with your Jeep, you let the tire pressures down, especially on sand and rocks and stuff. You get better grip, and yeah, it's kind of a lot safer when you're doing obstacles. It's the same principle. Softer foam, softer tires. Depends also on how heavy your rig is. So you got to play around with these a little bit. You get light kits for these vehicles as well. So all these lights are functioning. You get functioning front, rear. You can put interior lights in. It's all little LEDs with wires, and it's all connected into your receiver. You'll see the receiver has a few different ports in there, and I forgot to mention that you have different amount of channels, as they call it. Like this one, what is this? I think this is the 3-channel remote. I have one that's up to 6-channel, which basically means you have about 6 different ports. So one is used for acceleration, one is used for steering. Then you can add things on like lights. They even have workable winches like the real vehicles, because in these competitions you can use winching as well. You get points for that, but it's all optional. You have different accessories as well. What would you call this? I don't have the name in the head right now, but it's basically, you add this to your winch and you can put it onto roots and stuff so that you got something to hold on to. I think in real life they put it in the sand, but this size doesn't really work so well in the sand to pull the car forward. You have extendable bungee ropes for pulling another vehicle out of the dirt. You have sand ladders, or mud, or if you get stuck between the rocks, which basically, let's take this one. If you stuck in the sand, imagine your tires in the sand, you basically put this in like a full-size vehicle and it gives you a lot more grip and you can drive out. So it's just a recovery system. Then the all-important, say hi. Drivers, I mean, if you go into scale competitions, there are points that you get for scale accessories, for drivers that you put into your vehicle. My guys are in. This is an extra guy, which means I probably need a new truck to put him into. So why rock crawling? Well, for me, I'm from South Africa. I'm now living in Germany. I used to have my Land Rover and Toyota Hilux and all those things, and used to often be out in the mountains, take a grill and spend a couple of hours just off-roading and enjoying nature. In Germany, it's very restricted. So you're basically not allowed to go off the roads, off the tarmac. You've got off-road parks here, but they're unfortunately pretty far from where I am. So I drive a pickup. For the guys in Australia, a ute. For the South Africans, a bakkie. But I don't really get to use it that much. So that was really disappointing when I got here. And a lot of the rules in place are good and fine, but a lot of them are bloody annoying. So anyway, that's how I got into the scale version of off-roading, if you want to call it that. Yeah, and the other cool thing is, I mean, it's obviously a lot cheaper than trying to build up full-size vehicles and repairs. You can basically sit at home at your desk, build yourself like a little hobby area, work area. You have your amount of tools and things that you use, but you can sit in the evenings, or if it's crappy weather outside, or if you have time, you know, the kids are in bed or anything, and you feel like doing something, just freeing the mind, you can sit down and start tampering with these little things and adjusting and building and putting a rig together which is unique to you. And the great thing is when you get out on the trails with your buddies, because there's a huge community of rock crawlers worldwide. In Germany, in Europe, it's massive, and I know in the US and other countries as well. So you get together with mates, you meet up with people, you find the portals where they're meeting and what they're doing, and each brings their rigs, and you put it on the same track, and you test each other out, and compare, and chat, and share information. And it's an incredible camaraderie amongst the people. And in some way, it's given back to me. It's kind of like therapy in today's busy lifestyle. I mean, we are inundated with things to do, places to go, people to meet. Just task after task after task. And when you get time off, meet up with a couple of buddies. Hey, some of the guys take a beer with, or do whatever you feel like doing. And you're basically just out there having fun. And when you're on these trails, you're looking for lines and how to get your crawler up this obstacle. You kind of focus. It's like TV games in the real world in a different sense. You got races and bashes and jumpers. This tends to be more technical driving, and you focus, because any mistakes, your car rolls, and they do break and do get damaged. The same, if you push them too hard, you break axles and differentials, like the real thing. But it's a hell of a lot cheaper to run than the real deal. So in a nutshell, that is pretty much it about rock crawling. This is one division of a number of different types of hobbies out there. And this is just something that I personally am into, and you'll see a lot more of it on my channel. I'll probably do more videos about how to set things up, different things to try, you know, just information. And that's the great thing about our hobby. We share information and you see some amazing builds out there. So if this is something you think you might be interested in, meet up with a buddy if they've got one, try it out. there's a lot of basic kits you can start out with, and I'll tell you one thing which is important to know before you even get involved. It's addictive. It is addictive. It will affect your life. I think in a good way. No, it is addictive. It is an amazing hobby, and I am really grateful that I got into it. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more. I apologize for the camera. I'll have to check what's going on there. It seemed to be out of focus a little bit every now and then, but I'll work on that. Alright guys, till next time, take care.